Thanks for coming back and checking out our videos. If you can, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. I pay attention to all of that. I pay attention to the comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. So anyway, today, again, I have a really great guest here with me. I have Sean, who's joining me, Sean McBride, and he's a guy I've known, I guess, for probably 3-4 years, most especially probably through Michaela, right? Yeah, down at Rutgers.
Accurate.
Yeah. So I've known you for a couple of years, and I know a little bit about your journey, but why don't you just, like, where are you from? What are you doing? Why do I know you? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm New Jersey, born and raised, been there, Cape May County, so that's the southmost part, and I joke that I'm steadily moving up north throughout New Jersey.
Cape May County, what town in Cape May County?
Wildwood.
Oh, you were in Wildwood.
Yeah, beach town.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
Wow.
Yeah, I've been slowly moving up north as I continued doing my studies. So undergrad, I kind of went up to, not very far, I went to Atlantic City area, and now I'm at Rutgers. So this is, I guess, kind of central Jersey, where I'm doing my master's in plant biology.
Okay.
And to be more specific, I like to tell people I watch the grass grow.
Okay.
Because I study turf grass, which is golf management. And I'm very close to done. I'm almost finished. Been here way longer than I should have been. Started in 2019, and
okay, wow.
Yeah, so it's a long time for a master's, and we can maybe talk about the decisions and what went on with why I went, why I'm doing a master's. I started with a PhD, but we'll get into that. And I met you because there's a really nice young adult, Catholic young adult group in the area, and I got involved in that, and I met a lot of people, and through those people I met other people, and now I'm sitting here doing a YouTube video.
Who was your first connection with Petros?
So I was going to Mass at St. Peter's, and the brothers are there. The Brotherhood of
Hope. We had Brother Ken here, and we've referenced them a number of times. Yeah,
so they saw me.
They hunted you down.
Yeah.
But was it really? It was the brothers who really were the first to invite you.
Yes.
And do you remember what your first event was in Petros?
It was they do these monthly foundation nights. Okay. So it just so happened that it was the first foundation night of the new year or whatever. And so I went and I walked in, and it was a lot of people in a small room, coming right off of COVID, so they can finally start doing these.
So was that 21 maybe? 2021? Somewhere in that range?
Yeah, I think so. 2021 sounds right.
Okay.
Sounds right. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I know it all blurs together. But I'm just trying to get a context for how you got here, right? Yes. And no, I know, because that's interesting. If you're ever in a place and the Brotherhood happens to see anybody coming in by themselves and they don't know who they are, that's the
they're good about it.
And then you took a shot, right? You made that decision and said, "Hey, I'm going to go see what this thing is." And then you've been around and you're a fixture now.
No, not a fixture.
No, but you're somebody who people expect to see that.
Yeah.
And you're also one of those people, like I even know last year, you were giving people a hard time for not showing up at volleyball.
People got to show up. People guys come out to volleyball because I like it, so I want people to be there.
Yeah, and it's such a low key, not a big event, right?
It makes it better for me the more people that are there,
right?
Because then I can beat more people.
Well, you are also 9 feet tall, so that makes it a little harder. So what you want is you and Topher and those guys on one side, and you want all the girls on the other side. And then, although the girls could possibly kick your butt.
Topher's not that good. Sorry if you're watching this. Topher.
Sorry, Topher. You got called out. So
get better, Topher.
Right. So what you and I wanted to talk about was making decisions and discernment, right?
Yeah.
Because each of us in our lives, we each have had to make, I had to go to college, which was hard for me to leave home, dating Karen, getting engaged, getting married, having children, all of those different things. And I mean, you've had, decisions you've had to make in your life, right?
Yeah.
So just even choosing schools, what's your career, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, we're not talking these little decisions. You know how we're talking beforehand, right? We're not talking about what movie to go see tonight, or what vacation place to go, which really doesn't have a lot of impact. We're talking more things that have an impact, right? And, let's even just take you going to your schooling, right? You've had to make these different decisions along the way. I'm sure that took some time to process those through.
Yeah, it definitely did. And it's not easy making decisions when you have a lot of clearly good choices to make. We're not talking about, should I rob this bank or should I get a job, right? Because that, I guess you could choose to rob the bank, but most people recognize that's not good.
Right.
And that's not even an option.
Right.
You can easily pick one over the other. But when it's something like, what am I going to do next? What kind of trajectory am I going to put myself in my life to get to where I need to be?
Right.
It's hard because sometimes we don't look at it as a step-by-step thing, and instead we look at it as I'm making the entire choice for the rest of my life right now.
Right. And that choice can't change ever. And there are some that are more difficult to choose, those choices to change. But yeah, you're right. It's not like, well, this is my next step and we'll see where I'm going to go, right? And I would think, now you tell me if I'm wrong, but you've basically had faith most of your life, right?
Yeah.
So even in making decisions like that, maybe it wasn't as formed or whatever, you would at least say, what do you want me to do, Lord? Or like at least pray about it, right? And see where God, did you do that with going to school?
No. No, I didn't. In fact, I didn't even I didn't want to know it. I didn't want to think about what God wanted for me. I was like, I'm just going to do what I want.
That's a typical response, though, and which is funny because that's where people will respond that and say, I really don't want to know what God, because I kind of want to do this, which is mine. But like when you think about it, you didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I don't remember how I even got to Rutgers. Karen always laughed at me because I literally don't know how I got to Rutgers. I just know I went. And I know I took tests, and I know, so like I don't feel like I had to discern Rutgers, but I had to figure things out along the way. But there are times you just make those decisions, and it's a big enough decision to go, I don't want to know what's going on, right?
Yes.
But do you think your attitude on that has changed over the last couple of years?
Yes, it has. And sometimes it's because you do what you want, and you hate it. Or you're just not happy with it. And there's times where you make a decision and you're not happy with it at first, and you got to kind of, that's not really for sure an answer that you need to stop.
Right.
But it is something to consider if you're continuing down that path and there's still no joy, and you're taking the challenges. You're not a beginner anymore in it. You've overcome the initial anxieties, and now you're just like, well, this is a drag.
Yeah. Well, and it's one thing for things to be difficult. There's another thing that if you keep getting that nagging, that after you've changed things, after you've worked through things, and you go, I don't know that I'm supposed to be here. That's where it gets difficult, especially because you think this was the decision that I made. Mm-hmm. So now what? And all of a sudden I need to change this. I was talking to a friend of ours who had taken a job about 6 months ago, and she was in a service position, and we were working with her on some projects, and we got an email out of the blue that she's no longer with that organization. And I talked to her later, and I said, what happened? And she said, I really felt God telling me that I just need to get out of this. And you go, when you hear that, or when you keep getting that kind of nagging sense, whether it's go do this or make this change, right? You got to be careful, because that could just be, is it you? Is it me? Is it God? But you have to listen to that. You have to not just dismiss those, even if you feel like things are going well. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember when I got into grad school, it was a very just kind of go with the flow kind of thing, but it was based on people telling me kind of, this would be a good thing for you to try.
Yeah.
So I mentioned before that I went into grad school with a PhD, and I knew from the start when I applied that I probably didn't want a PhD, but they call him a preceptor, somebody I had worked with, a faculty member at my undergraduate school. He told me, listen, you should go to grad school. You're very smart. You don't necessarily know what you want to do right now. You have the skills and the capabilities to do this. I'm like, he's right. I don't know what to do. This would be a good thing to check out. He's like, okay, I'll do a master's, I told him. I'm like, no, he says. And masters don't get any funding. What you're going to do is you're going to apply with a PhD for a PhD program. If you don't like it, drop down to a master's.
Okay. Interesting. But he knew how to kind of what you can do and how to deal with those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought up a point before, and I think this is good, which I think we should talk about. Right? You need to make a decision on something. Yeah. And there are 3 good decisions in front of you. It might be more, it might be less. 3 good decisions in front of you. Not, I've always joked, I like where my kids are going. And I said, it's not like they're choosing to go cook meth in a garage, right? That
Right.
we'd have a conversation about, right? But the choices that they're making. So you look at it and go, these are these three things. So what do we do about that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
again, let's talk about weighty things: job, marriage, a vocation, something big, even moving, that kind of thing. What do we do about that then?
Well, I think the first thing we do is we kind of consult ourselves, right? We think about our past experiences and we base a general decision off of that. And sometimes that could be wrong, especially if you don't experience a lot. But that's what you have to go off of. Maybe one of these things are something that you've thought about in the past and you never followed through with, and it's still sticking around.
Right.
That's something to consider. Other things to consider, like the practicalities of them.
Right.
What's good about each one, what's bad about each one. And if you're doing all that and you're still kind of hung up, you don't know what to do, or even if you're leaning towards something, but you still don't know for sure, you go to somebody else.
Right.
That you, not just anybody, but somebody that like you can trust and knows what they're talking about.
Right.
Don't go to your, high school buddy who is still living at home, doesn't have any job.
Living in his basement and isn't working, and you're like, what do you think?
Yeah.
No, but it's good, because, I mean, the other thing I'm going to even go ahead of is just being aware of, is there a way you feel God is pulling you to go, right? So it's that I had a discussion with somebody recently who I was talking about a number of decisions I was looking at, and he said, well, what do you feel right now? Like, where do you feel? What's your desire? And we can't discount what our desires are. So if out of those, you're really leaning towards 3, right? You have this desire towards it, but you're still kind of torn. Like I said, look at it, like you said, look at it from, for yourself, kind of dig into a little bit. And then, I think there's way too many people, first of all, that make it without prayer, make a decision without prayer. But then I think there's way too many people that make weighty decisions and don't run it past anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Or if they do, it's not the right people. Right?
Yes.
And I think you and I have both, especially because the circles we run in, because we run in the same circles. Somebody will make a decision on something and they come in and they tell you and you go, where'd that come from?
Yep.
Oh, well, I just decided that I'm going to go do X, Y, Z. And you go, was that, and again, I'm not going to say I'm right for anybody. But my question will be, but did you talk it through? Yeah.
So that's a good thing. I'm not going to say I'm right. And I'm not, we say decide somebody who's wise that you should go to. Don't go to me. Don't come to me. Go to somebody else. Let me tell you that right now.
But you might be the right person, honestly, because you have a certain skill set or you have experience in something, you might be the right person to go to. And that's where I think you have to discern who are those people. Like, if I needed to know things about turf grass, I would call you or Brother Jude, who knows, But if I need to know things about computers, we know guys who, like, I would go to you and say, what do I do here? What computer do I buy? Yeah. So I think there's that piece where, I wouldn't necessarily, because I don't know your skill with computers.
Don't go to me.
I wouldn't go to you.
Don't go to
me. Well, and even, you may or may not know this, but Justin in seminary is ending his 4th year.
Yeah.
And he should be going into upper seminary, but he decided, and he worked on this for a while, that he's going to take a year just of prayer and work. And it wasn't a light decision that he made. So I think about everything he came to me, Dad, what do you think? And we had a lengthy discussion. And my first concern was that he wasn't making the decision for the right reasons. After we had our discussions, and I'm like, I think you're perfectly right.
Yeah.
And if it works and it's God's will, go do it.
Yep.
And I think it's those kinds of things. Because then he, of course, talked to priests and a bishop and all these other things to work that through. So it wasn't just this, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If somebody does that, then you don't know the reasoning, but one could be they're running away from something, right?
Yeah.
And that's what, in grad school, very early on, 2019, I'm in there. Miserable. All these people are talking about these papers about CRISPR-Cas and this new variety of grass, and they're so excited about it. And I'm like, can we finish talking about this? So I'm like, I'm not into it like these people.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not for me. Maybe I just need to check it out more and I can get inspired. But I'm like, something's wrong here. I'm not happy. There's a lot of reasons, practically, why I wouldn't be. You're coming out of undergrad and you have all these friends. Grad school's not undergrad.
Right.
You're lonely. You don't have those
Right.
social circles. So I'm aware of that. So in my head, I'm like, I'm not quitting yet. I'm gonna give it a year, maybe 2 years. And then COVID hit the second year, so I'm like, oh, I got to give it more time because COVID obviously screwed this up.
Right.
But
Right. Not a good time to make decisions during COVID.
even when I'm faltering, there's a few people in my life, pastors, adult figures, parents that I go to and I let them know, like, I'm not having a good time. And they'll tell, like, I'm just not. I'm thinking of maybe doing something else instead or quitting. And they're like, oh, Sean, you just started.
Right.
You just started. And then the good ones will tell me, these are the things that you need to work and struggle with a bit before you can really know that this is something you should stop doing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because I think, right, you actually bring up a really good point. 1, 2, and 3 are in front of you. You chose 3 to go to grad school, right?
Yep.
1, 2, and 3 are in front of you. We think if we choose 3, somehow it's going to be a walk in the park, right?
Yeah.
Somehow that it's going to be confirmed through ease or whatever.
Oh, Rob,
right?
Why would God give us a hard time if we're doing what he wants us to?
Yeah, right.
He'd make it easy.
Right. Right. Well, and I think
He loves us.
That's right. So, of course, since he loves us, everything is rainbows and ponies and unicorns,
Yes.
right? Well, but I think about that, right? Discerning for me, going to Rutgers, getting a job, getting married, having children, right? None of that all of that was wonderful. All of that was great, and I learned so much. It's not easy, especially if you're going to try to do it right, where Karen and I stumbled into doing it right occasionally, right? But, like, it's not an easy thing, but it's wonderful. It's fulfilling. So I think that's another thing where people go a month or 2 in and go, this is awful. I made the wrong decision. And that might be true. You might know, wait a minute, but you'll test that. But I think too many people go, get in, get past that little bit of a honeymoon period, go, oh my gosh, this got hard, and go like this. I'm done.
Yeah.
I made the wrong decision. And you can argue with this if you want, but I'm of the mindset that if you're being led by God and you choose 1, 2, or 3, and right now you really feel that 3 is the right decision, and you get down the path and you have to make a different decision, 6 months in, a year in, you have to go, nah, I got to go back and do 2. People can say I made the wrong decision. I don't think so. I think that was the right decision at that time.
Oh, yeah, you got to rule things out. You have to.
Yeah.
Like, how can you have, in making a choice, they're not all going to be the right ones.
No.
But making a choice is better than not.
God can work with us if we're moving. There's too many people that we know who are paralyzed. Well, I don't know. There's been no neon sign to tell me where I'm supposed to go. And the question I'll ask is, who have you talked to? Where are you leaning? And what's holding you back at this point?
Yeah.
You know?
Those are good questions to ask.
Yeah. And like I said, I think a lot of those people aren't talking to anybody. And if they are, they're talking to all the wrong people. Because I've had discussions with people who make a decision and I say, well, who'd you talk to? Well, this person, this person, this person. Talked to 14 different people who were all, not that they were evil people or anything like that, but just they weren't the right person to help you put it in perspective.
Well, maybe they go to people, I kind of did this a little bit myself, but
we all do. We all do.
You don't want someone who's like really knows the ins and out of what you're doing. You want to go to somebody on the outside.
Yeah.
Right? And that could give you good insight if that person is like, I don't know, someone super wise, knows you very well through years and years and years, that doesn't necessarily need to know all the inner workings of this specific problem. But it's also a good idea to talk to people who know that are there with you, with it, and knows kind of things that maybe you don't even know about the scenario. Right.
The problem I see with that, though, is sometimes when you talk to them, they can make it seem like it's so easy and it's so this, and of course this is my life's passion, so of course it's going to be great for you, right? And we got to be careful of that.
Oh yeah.
But that's why I like Brother Jude, I don't know what I call him, mentor, spiritual director, whatever. I'll run all kinds of decisions about it, and he doesn't know what this job entails. He has a general sense, but he doesn't know, is this a good thing to do? Does this really fit my skill set? Things like that, right? But you're right. Sometimes, in order, let's say I'm going to go into, I'm looking at the roofing job, right? maybe I should look at that a little bit and say, does this like totally repel me and not interest me? Like, I can see where you're sitting and like they're talking about grass and stuff, and you're just like, this is like dull. I was in a presentation one time. I was telling somebody this yesterday. It was at my first job. I'm sitting in a presentation, and it's for coatings for the interior of these big oil tanks.
So wow.
The most dull presentation. And then here's our very exciting product, and here's our, like, an hour. And I was sitting there going, "What? I could read the catalog myself. I get it, you know." But after a while, I was just like, oh, so dull. But we got to sit through the dull too. That doesn't mean it's the wrong decision.
Yeah, no, you're right, because it's not just the dull. Everything in your life, no matter what you do, there's gonna be dull days, I think, or maybe in dull seasons. Yeah. Because for me, I'll tell you one thing I do like about grad school is the field season's awesome. I'm outside. I'm getting sunburnt.
Well, that's your Irish heritage that also does that too. You burst into flames.
Yeah. I'm outside. I'm spraying stuff on grass. The wind's blowing in my face. I'm getting my hands dirty. I do like that. Yeah. So there's things you realize, I like these aspects of it. So even I'm complaining. I'm like, oh, this stunk for me. I hated it. I didn't hate all of it. Yeah. And even as I'm coming towards the end, there's parts of this, especially during COVID, where I wasn't putting myself all into this, because I was kind of checking out. Sure. I was kind of slumping around, checking out. I was like, this isn't it. I'm going to drop the PhD, get a master's, figure something else out. This is not for me. It's interesting as I'm getting like the, sprinting at the end, the madman dash, and I'm writing my thesis, and I'm really trying to get it done just so I can graduate. I'm like, this stuff is a little bit more interesting than I gave it credit for. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not going to pursue this too much next step, but there might be something here, but I got to see something else first. Well,
and you have to make some decisions coming up now, right? Yeah. So that's another season for you, which is a good reason why we're talking about this. This is another season where you have to look at it and go, once I finish this, right? Because I also know people, and you're not this kind of person, I also know people who hate the prospect of getting out of school. Because to change going to schooling, that's what I said, I know you're not that kind of person, right? But there's people who've gone to school continually from the time they were 18, like upper to like 30s into their 40s, just because they can't face the prospect of getting out. But you have to make some decisions now and look at, so I know you're like, what is that part of that process for you at this point?
Yeah, so it's my advisor, she's doing her job, right? And she's like, well, here's the jobs that are open to you. You got to find somebody that kind of knows the sure. And I'm like, I wouldn't mind tossing my CV out to those guys. Sure. Like, see what they say. If they get back to me, see what those jobs are. Because some of those jobs are mostly the parts that I like about this. But it's what's really important when you're doing that transition phase is kind of making sure when you're leaving what you're doing, you leave it in a good way. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, there's times where I wanted to quit. And I know myself. I would have been looking back my entire life.
You would have regretted, you didn't know what would have happened because you didn't finish.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So finishing, getting my thesis fully written, publishing papers on the work, getting that stuff out for the lab, for my advisor who put a lot of resources into me, that's how I finished this properly. Right. And then, you have to know the next step, right? And the next step could, for me, I'm keeping it under wraps. Sure. Right.
But there's things that you've considered. You've looked at a number of different avenues, tested a few different things along the way, and you're kind of deciding which direction you got to go because you're yet again in another kind of transition phase,
And it's funny because you make the decision of what you're going to do, and if that means moving or changing the environment, at first you're like, I'm ready. Like, if you feel at peace. And then it starts to get a little bit more real. Yep. And you see that, no, I don't have to leave. I don't have to leave. I can re-sign up my lease here.
Right. I can do this. I can keep going because I like what I have.
My professor, the advisor, very nice person, actually excellent. I have no qualms with her. She said, oh, yeah, and if you don't find the thing right away, you can work in this lab going forward as a lab manager. I'm like, that's sweet. I could do that.
I thought you were going to say, that's the last thing I want to do. It gives you a comfort where you could kind of keep things going the way they are, right? And that's where it's, right, I think sometimes, and we got to end here in a minute, right? But I think what people will do sometimes is make decisions out of comfort. Because you could very simply go, Sure.
Yeah.
I'll stay in the lab. Without checking with anybody, without checking with where you think God's leading you. Yeah, this is great. Look at this. I can stay right where I am. I can have a good time. I can just keep doing this. This is great. But there's going to be something along the way where you're going to go, I never looked at anything else.
Yeah.
Right? I never considered it all, you know? And I think people start panicking when they realize I need to move, or I need to lose my friend group because I'm going to be at a distance, or I need to do these different things. And it makes it far more challenging to make those decisions. So, well, definitely praying for you. And, as you have to decide what's going forward. And I think it's great. I think it's great. So thank you, though, for being here.
I don't know anything.
Yeah, you don't know anything. No, it's great. So YouTube, thanks for watching us. We really appreciate Sean being here and spending this time this afternoon. And if you have questions, please post them in the comments. So if you have questions about grass, I'll forward them to Sean. We can get all kinds of grass questions answered for you. But comments put in there, please. I read them. Share these videos, and then certainly like and subscribe, and let other folks know about these. And let us know what you want us to talk about next. Thanks again.